The Millennium Development Goals are a set of 8 goals made by the UN and other international organizations. They focus on making the world better in the 21st century. Goal number 1 is to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. The main target for this goal, set in 1990, is to halve the proportion of people living in extreme poverty and hunger by 2015. According to the United Nations, extreme poverty is anyone making $1 a day or less. The proportion of extreme poverty in 1990 was 46%. Hunger and poverty is a serious problem throughout the world. Every day while we sit at our dinner tables stuffing ourselves, 820 million people go hungry. For many of these people, hunger is a way of life. According to the Gates Foundation, about 1.1 billion people make under $1 a day, and for many of them, it is not enough to sustain themselves and their families. That's probably why 13 million infants each year are underweight. In fact, access to proper nutrition could avert 1/3 of all child deaths in developing countries. 2.5 billion people worldwide chronically suffer from malnutrition. That's about 1/3 of the world. That means that if 3 random people were selected from around the world, 1 would be malnourished. In my opinion, that's too many. In the 21st century, we shouldn't have this. Oftentimes, people living in extreme poverty and hunger find themselves trapped in a vicious cycle. According to the Gates Foundation, most of these people live in rural areas in developing countries and make a living by farming. However, they often are forced to overuse their land in order to produce enough to get by and make a small profit. They squeak by that time, but next year it's even harder to grow food because the land is even more overused. To add to the problems, most of these farmers are given bad seeds which produce small, weak plants. According to Thomas Friedman, author of The World is Flat, the world is starting to globalize and people in major cities, even countries like India and China, are beginning to catch up to the West economically. This globalization is mainly due to capitalism, which seeks the lowest prices, and because of this, that has dumped tons of money into developing countries. With this money, major cities have built up infrastructure, and with the combination of technology, mainly the internet, people have been able to make a comfortable living in their home country. However, people living in rural areas are being left behind in this. This is because of the lack of infrastructure, and without the money to create infrastructure, these people will never be able to catch up with the rest of the world. However, progress has been made in goal number 1. The proportion of people in extreme poverty fell to 26% in 2005. Also, the proportion of malnourished children under 5 in the world fell from 33% in 1990 to 26% in 2006. However, since 2006, food prices have gone up drastically, and this number has gone up again. Regionally, Eastern Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa are the most impoverished and hungry places on Earth. However, Eastern Asia has made significant progress in the Millennium Development Goal, mainly due to globalization. Because with money coming in from exports, governments, namely China, were able to help people in the far corners of their countries. The proportion of extreme poverty in Eastern Asia started at 80% in 1990, but has since fallen to 20%. In contrast, however, Sub-Saharan Africa has remained at 50% extreme poverty ratio since 1990. As we can see, poverty and hunger is a major problem which needs our attention and cooperation immediately so that these people will suffer no longer.